Hey, it's Mark Lanier with your video thought for the day. Okay, this is baseball week. We're at the start of the season if you're not watching this fresh. In fact, if you are watching it fresh, the Cardinals have a day game today. You may want to watch that day game. Now, you may be saying, Mark, what are you doing with a Cardinals jersey on in a locker room when you're a Houston Astros guy? I got to tell you, I didn't move to Houston until I was in my 20s. And I grew up collecting baseball cards. And in 1968, as an 8-year-old kid, my team, the St. Louis Cardinals, they were amazing. Bob Gibson, lowest ERA to this date for any guy who's ever pitched in that many games, just still amazing. The Cardinals, they went to the World Series. They lost in 7 to the Detroit Tigers because of some awesome pitching thing by it wasn't Denny McLain. It was Mickey Lolich who pitched so well that year. But anyway, in the playoffs, Denny McLain was a 31-game winner. Aside from baseball trivia, though, here's my point in our video thought for the day. Not all baseball is won on the field. In fact, a good bit of baseball is won before you go out to the field. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the way a coach has to decide who's going to play, in what position, and what's the batting order going to be. They don't do that by some random roll of the dice. The batting order is not, wonder who I'm happy with today. The batting order is not draw names out of a hat, and it's certainly not alphabetical order. Your leadoff hitter, the first batter in the batting order, is someone who's really good at getting on base. They're able to hang off of the pitches enough to let the balls go by to perhaps get a walk. You want that leadoff hitter to get a high on-base percentage. Your second hitter is someone who's good with a bat. They can lay down a bunt. They can do a hit and run. They're probably not going to fan out. They're willing to wait for the right pitch. Your third hitter needs to be a strong hitter, power, can hit that RBI and bring someone in. But not simply power, also a good connect with the ball hitter. They can hit the single, the double, and the triple. Your fourth hitter, typically a cleanup hitter. That's someone who's hitting for power. That's probably your best power hitter. And it goes on and on throughout the lineup. Now, what does this have to do with the Bible? Well, let me tell you. A lot of people believe walking by faith or living by faith simply means rolling the dice and trusting God with the result. You just go through life pell-mell, sort of, how do you feel about this, that, and the other, and trust that God's going to take care of things. Faith is blind, and you have no clue, and you leap off a cliff. Nothing could be further from the biblical truth. The biblical truth is God made you and He made me with these things in our skulls called brains. And they aren't there for decoration. They're there for us to use. I mean, even Paul's emphatic about how we need to renew our minds. We need to be thinking in godly ways. And so much of Scripture teaches us to do that. But part of godly thinking is how to assess a situation ahead of time in the locker room before you go out on the field to play. Go back to Exodus. The Israelites have left Egypt. I think it's around Exodus 18, where Moses is spending all day, every day, judging disputes between people. And Jethro, his father-in-law, comes to him and says, son-in-law, listen, buddy, you're not doing this smart. You're not doing this right. You need to set up other people to judge this, or you'll do it all day, every day, and it's not the best use of your time. And then when there are huge problems, they bring them to you. You're like the Supreme Court. And that's not the only situation. Look at the invasion of Canaan, the promised land, by Israel. Before Joshua takes the people in, and before they conquer Jericho, what does Joshua do? He sends out spies, because he needs to assess what's going on and come up with the best game plan. Doesn't mean God's not going to have to show up and God's not going to have to do his thing. But it's the spies that go out, and they're in Jericho when the Rahab the harlot hides them from the governor, king, whatever ruler of Jericho, and says, I'm going to hide you and keep you safe, but when y'all invade, save me and those under my roof. And they say, okay, tie a red flag to your window and we'll save everybody in that building. I mean, that whole thing was one of planning and execution. Now, yes, God told them, go out there on the seventh day and march around the city 7 times, but they had to count to 7. I mean, this is God is working with us to good end. Daniel did amazing things in King Nebuchadnezzar's entourage. But you'll see that Nebuchadnezzar told his wise Babylonians to select not just Daniel, but others, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and to teach them the language and the customs of the Babylonians. And you see that God gave them the ability to learn it. But they had to know those things to be able to navigate, to do things right. Even Jesus said, you don't build a tower without counting the costs ahead of time. And so this idea that a walk by faith is a walk of blind kismet and luck and trust in God is wrong. We are to acknowledge God, Proverbs 3 says, in all of our ways, and he'll make our paths straight, but we're acknowledging him as we figure out how to walk by his divine inspiration. It's one reason I want to spend so much time in Scripture. It gives me insight into this decision-making process. It's why I want the Spirit of God in my heart to help convict me of sin and righteousness and judgment so that I can make good decisions. But God didn't make you and me to be puppets, and he didn't make us as a computer program. He made us as thinking people, and he calls us as part of our worship of him to bring him our minds, to renew our minds, and to become the kind of people that can put together a good lineup for a winning team. By the way, I don't know who's watching this, but Michael Rhodes, my best friend in 1968, you had 2 Bob Gibson baseball cards. I had every baseball card there was of every Cardinal except a Bob Gibson. I could never get one, and you would never trade me for one of those. Not that I hold a grudge. I'll see you tomorrow with another video thought for the day.